Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. Okay, so I brought out the meditation books again today, and I thought we would just read a quick meditation, which it'll end up being 20 minutes or something much. Read a quick meditation and just get us set on the straight and narrow path today, or the crazy and weird path, or the road less traveled, or whatever path. Let's just read and see what the meditation has to say to us today. Today is April 22nd. Oh God, it's May 22nd. I cannot believe this month is going by so quick. The pool's supposed to open this weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend. June is a week from Saturday. Can you guys believe it? I mean, it just seems to me like it was yesterday that I was sitting on the front porch vlogging, and I was talking about, I don't know how I'm gonna make it through this winter, and if I have to vlog inside, I'll vlog inside, and I don't know how I'm gonna do it, and I can't wait until the pool opens. It feels like it was just yesterday that my neighbor and I were at the pool closing it down on the very last day, and now here we are, and the pool is opening again. It seems crazy to me. I've kept on my phone this countdown to the pool opening for like the last 6 months. What is it? September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. That can't be 9 months. September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. I waited 9 months for the pool to be open. I can't believe it. I mean, that seems crazy to me. Unreal that I've waited that long. Okay, let's get into the meditation. Now, it will be so funny if it says something that has any reference to being excited about something or the pool open. I haven't looked at any of these meditations for today. Okay, so from the language of letting go, let's see what it says for May 22nd. Bum, 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 bum. It pulled it right open to May 25th. Loving ourselves unconditionally. Okay, times of reprogramming. I have no idea what this is about, so let's read this one. May 22nd, times of reprogramming. Do not ask for love unless you're ready to be healed enough to give and receive love. Do not ask for joy unless you're ready to feel and release your pain so you can feel joy. Do not ask for success unless you're ready to conquer the behaviors that would sabotage success. Wouldn't it be nice if we could imagine ourselves having or becoming and then immediately receiving what we wanted? We can have and be the good things we want. All good things are ours for the asking, but first, groundwork, preparation work must be done. A gardener would not plant seeds unless the ground was adequately prepared to nurture and nourish those seeds. The planting would be wasted effort. It would be wasted effort for us to get what we wanted before we were ready. First, we need to become aware of our need or desire. This may not be easy. Many of us have become accustomed to shutting off the inner voice of our wants, needs, and desires. Sometimes, life has to work hard to get our attention. Next, we let go of the old programming, the behaviors and beliefs that interfere with nurturing and nourishing the good. Many of us have strong sabotaging programs learned from childhood that need to be released. We may need to act as if for a while until the belief that we deserve the good becomes real. We combine this process with much letting go while we are being changed at the core. There is a naturalness to this process, but it can be intense. Things take time. Good things are ours for the asking if we are willing to participate in the work of groundbreaking, work and wait. Today, God, give me the courage to identify the good I want in my life and to ask for it. Give me also the faith and stamina I need to go through the work that must be accomplished first. Wow, it's an interesting meditation. I like this part at the beginning that says, it's very direct, and she says, do not ask for love unless you're ready to be healed enough to give and receive love. Do not ask for joy unless you're ready to feel and release your pain so you can feel joy. You know, it's interesting, this comment that she has at the beginning here. It kind of reminds me of like, I can remember somebody saying to me after a meeting one time, we were talking about like prayer and meditation and higher power and stuff like that. And I can remember one of my friends said something, I think, and we were talking after the meeting about this idea of like God does not need reminders. Like you don't need to pray 100 times to God about something. It was like this new concept to me. It was like it was such a simple concept, but it was like mind-blowing to me, right? Like if God is really God and God is really like, you know, omnipotent and like knows everything and is all controlling, then God probably doesn't need reminders, right? Like we don't need to pray to God like, God, please, you know, do this for me, do that for me, whatever. And the next day when it doesn't happen, remind God, like get in God's ear and be like, hey God, remember yesterday I asked you, please God. So it's like God doesn't need constant reminders of that, you know? which I think is an interesting kind of concept. I'd never really thought of it that way before. Speaking of that, since I'm on the topic of prayer, I will say this. You know, in my younger years, I can remember like not really understanding for me how prayer worked. And, you know, I really didn't have conscious conversations with my higher power. I would really just ask God for things I wanted in my life. And, you know, God was like this wish granter for me, you know? And I don't think there's anything wrong with praying for that. Pray the way that you want to pray. Have your language with your higher power or no higher power in the universe, however you want. I mean, sometimes I walk out and I'm not even talking to God. I'm just like, universe, it is a beautiful day. You know, sometimes I speak to Mother Earth or the universe or whatever, you know. And just some force that's out there, whether that's a force of nature or a force of God or whatever it is, right? But I remember going through this breakup and I was talking to my mom about it. And I said to my mom something about like, well, I've been praying on it. And she said, praying on the relation, what do you mean you've been praying on it? And I said, I've been praying for it to work. Like, I really want it to work. And she's like, oh, sweetie. She was like, that's not really how the purpose of prayer, how we pray. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, we don't pray for things. Like, you don't pray for a relationship. You don't pray. And I will say this in retrospect, I think it's fine to pray for whatever you want. If you want to pray to win the lottery, I think that's great. I think if you want to pray for sickness to be removed, that's great. If you want to pray for a house, I think that's fine. If you want to pray for, you know, groceries in your refrigerator, I think that's great too, right? I think if you want to, but those are all things, right? Like, those are all conditions that we want God to solve for us in our lives. And what my mom said to me that day was, we pray for things like compassion, understanding, kindness, forgiveness, to understand situations, to have the strength to work through something. Well, I will tell you that that was not an easy concept for me to get at that time, right? To pray for those things. For me, often, prayer is meditation sometimes. And meditation has been translated to me not just as this very Zen state, but as deep thought. And that was how it was defined when we talked about prayer and meditation back in the early days of recovery. Meditation was not like this Zen state. Meditation was translated into deep thought. You think about something in a deep way, right? And for me, often, prayer is deep thought. Prayer is me getting to the point of understanding, me looking at things and trying to have the strength to work through something, to come to the point of forgiveness, come to the point of compassion, to come to the point of understanding or kindness. Because those are not necessarily always just the first things that happen. Sometimes I have to work through that, right? And so for me, it was like this understanding of how prayer can work for my life in a way to get me to the point of, and it's not like I ask God for understanding over a situation and he grants it. He's not a wish granter. I have to do the work, you know? It's why I love the recovery. It's kind of like a joke saying that, you know, there's this guy and he's drowning out in the middle of the ocean. He's like, God save me, God save me. And this boat comes by and they're like, get in the boat, get in the boat. And he's like, no, God's going to save me, God's going to save me. And then, this helicopter comes over and they're like, put down a ladder and they're like, climb up on the ladder, climb up on the ladder. And he's like, no, God's going to save me, God's going to save me. And he drowns and he dies, you know, and he goes to heaven. And he's standing there before God. And he's like, God, I believed in you. I prayed to you to save me. You didn't save me. And God said, I sent a boat. I sent a helicopter. What more did you want? And I think that's it often, right? Like, sometimes the answers are right in front of us. And the answers are not necessarily in the wish granting. Sometimes the answers are in the journey to getting to whatever it is we want, you know? I've shared this story, I think, a couple times before, but like, you know, it's interesting the way that, like, do you guys remember the movie back in the day, The Craft? Okay, I think actually The Craft for me, and I know this is going to sound bizarre because it's about witches, but I think it's a perfect definition of how God works in my life. I think sometimes, like, the things that I pray for come to me, but in different ways. For example, there's a scene in the movie, and they're asking this one girl, like, how she has her powers, and she said, sometimes I will pray for a rainstorm and a pipe will burst in the basement. It's like, I get what I was asking for, but not necessarily the way that I wanted it, right? So for example, in the past, when I was like struggling with money and things like that and in debt, you know, I would like pray on that. I'd be like, God, I need a solution to not being in debt anymore. And then 2 days later, I get some overwhelming bill that I'm like, I do not know how I'm going to pay this bill. And I was just praying to God like 2 days ago, like, help me with this, God. Help me to overcome this debt. Help me to overcome this overwhelming amount of fear that I have, of financial insecurity. I don't know how I'm going to do these things, right? And then I would sit there and I'd be like, okay, well, I'm not going to spend on this credit card anymore. I'm just using these examples, but I'm not going to go out to dinner anymore. I'm only going to buy things that I need, not things that I want. This is how I worked through debt, right? Back in the day. And then I'm going to start budgeting my money, and I'm not going to spend money frivolously. I'm not going to spend money on things I don't need, right? And then I get that bill paid off. And then after that bill's paid off, I'm like, well, I don't know that there's not going to be something else that happens, so I need to start saving money. So I'm going to put $5 a week aside in a savings account. And I'm going to keep $5 aside, over here in this account. I'm like, I'm going to pad my account, which is what my dad taught me to do so that I never overdraft on it. I'm going to pay the bills that I can, and then I'm going to start on my credit cards paying a little bit off at a time. And I'm not going to buy anything that I can't, right? So that one bill that I got after I prayed to God to help me out of financial insecurity actually got me out of financial debt, because it taught me that if I do the work, that was the boat, that was the helicopter, right? I didn't want to see it at the time. I didn't want to see that God was sending me messages, right? Like, it's up to you. Like, I'm not going to take care of this tomorrow. I'm not going to send you a check and put a check for $1 million in your bank. You're going to do the work. Like, here's the boat, here's the helicopter, right? You do the work. But know that I'm going to get you through this, okay? That there's nothing you can't handle without me in your life. And that was where I started looking at things differently, right? I was like, oh, I pray for a thunderstorm and a pipe breaks in the basement. I pray for debt to be removed, and I get another bill that forces me into a position to start paying off my debt. And today I'm debt-free. Today I have no debt in my life. No debt. Okay? That's a pretty powerful thing to say. As somebody that had a lot of debt in my life, and nobody paid it off for me, okay? Just, my dad didn't, because I know people will speculate. My dad didn't pay it off for me. Nobody gave me any money. I didn't get any money when my mom passed away. Nobody paid that stuff off for me. I did it. My husband and I did it together, And it was a lot of work, and I'm proud of myself for doing that, But I know that God was in that. I don't know that if that bill had never come 2 days after I was praying about it, I don't know that I would ever be debt-free. I think I would have probably kept on doing some of the things I did, So when this meditation says, make sure you're ready for love, or make sure you're ready to be healed when you're asking for love so that you can give it and receive it. If you're asking for joy, make sure that you're healing enough to make sure that you're ready to receive it and give it. I think it's so powerful. I think that we often in life ask for things that we're not ready for yet. Often I can think back in my life when I was really broken, okay, and had gotten out of a relationship and was in no position to be dating or even in a new relationship, right? Had just gotten out of a relationship and was a mess and was crying and what did I do wrong and why didn't it last and didn't they love me and wasn't I good enough and all this kind of stuff. And my answer to all that was, well, if I only had a boyfriend, everything would be okay. I was not healed and I was looking for love, right? I had to do the work. And that's what we call carrying baggage into relationships. And that can be work relationships, friendships, anything, right? You have to do the healing work to accept this stuff first. Now that I've worked through a lot in my life today, I'm able to accept love and I'm able to give it back. I still have a lot of work to do. There are days that I wake up that I really am like, is my peace more important to me today than this or that or whatever? I ask myself that on a regular basis, is it all worth it to me about this? Am I willing to give up my peace and my serenity over this one thing, right? And I think it's really important to, ask ourselves that question. So I think this is a fantastic meditation. I really enjoy reading this meditation. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.